Hello again and thanks for joining. These are old Piko models, you can see that on the box, but they're from a time when Piko was in East Germany and they produce a whole bunch of interesting model railway items, not necessarily always to the best quality, but certainly very interesting. They had a range of different boxes as well, and these ones are very typical of a certain period, but I'm not exactly sure when. One of them here has the number 526055158. It does say made in GDR, and you can see that it's a bogie van. And you can see at some point it was sold in Sheffield for £3. These are quite cheap to pick up these days, but I'm not sure you'd get one for £3 today. The other box is exactly the same. We have 56409-190 for this model, and you can see at some point it was priced at £4. So let's get these open. We'll start with this one first, and we'll see what we've got inside. Well, unfortunately, I think we've got a bit of damage here. Seems to be a little ladder that's fallen off from somewhere, but I'm not actually sure where. There is a bit of damage up here on the roof, but this doesn't fit onto it, so maybe I'm missing another part or something. I'm going to put that to one side for now, and we'll just have a look at what the model's like. Well, this is certainly an unusual van, and it's very typical of what Piko was producing. All manner of different rolling stock, and this one has got a lot of character for being just a brown van. At this end, you can see that we have a brakeman's cab. It's a separate piece that's been added in, which is very nicely detailed with the door and the planking on it. It's got a little window there, although no glazing. The top part has been painted black on the roof there, and the main piece of plastic is all in brown, and you can see that we have a grey roof which has been painted on, and we have some walkways up here as well, and they have an acceptable level of detail. Not as good obviously as modern wagons, but certainly for the time this is pretty good. And we have some hatches too. The masking isn't great, you can see some of the brown through it, and some of the grey has also gone on to parts like this here, which I don't think it should have done. But looking at the side of this moulding, it's got a hell of a lot of detail. All the bracing and the doors are really well defined, and it's even got some nice printing here. You can see it's a Deutsche Reichsbahn wagon, and you can see the numbers down below it there. And we have some more printing at this end as well, but just look at the amount of detail on the side of this wagon. It's really quite cool. It also has little steps here, and these have all broken off, which is a bit of a shame. It's obviously getting very brittle, this plastic. At this end of the wagon we have a ladder, which is an extra piece which has been added in black. And again, the moulding has really good plank detail and other bits and pieces moulded in here, which is really quite cool. The bogies are quite plain on the sides of them, and they've got some spring detail, but they're not the most detailed of moulding, and it could be actually indicative of the bogies on these in real life, but they don't look that particularly good. And we do have wheels with really big flanges. They revolve pretty well. We have a metal insert as well, you can see it there. So the wheels are revolving metal on metal, which makes them go pretty well. And we have a cantilever coupling on the bogie as well, which cantilever is separate to the bogie. Underneath there's an awful lot of good wood detail, and all the bracing is moulded in here as well as the brake gear. So overall the masking of the top isn't that great, but the moulding I think on this is actually really good. It's got so much detail on it, I'm quite impressed. But let's get the other one out and we'll compare it to this one. So it's a completely different style of wagon here. Again, it's a bogie van. This is a so-called cool wagon or refrigerated van, and it is from the CSD. So looking a bit closer at this end, we've got these little steps and walkway, which is an extra piece of plastic which has been added in black. And we've got some detail moulded up here of a little hatch with some red flashes for the overhead electrics. And you can see little brackets at the corners and a little handrail there which has been moulded in, which has been picked out in black. We have this black area down here which isn't masked off that great just at the corner there, but it's not too bad at all. And some of the printing on here is really small. You can see the CSD there, as well as Praha here for Prague. The centre door is an acceptable level of definition, but it's not perfect, and thankfully the steps are okay on this one. And it's a fairly plain sided van, but we do have some ridges, another hatch up here and some more printing. And at this end we've got a little compartment with a window and a door there. It's not very well defined, it doesn't have any glazing either. And then we have another set of steps here. By contrast to the first van, these buffers are actually pliable. Now these are a great idea because they can take a hell of a knock and not break. I've seen these on some Piko models in the past, and I always quite enjoy having these on there, and it just gives that extra confidence that your buffers aren't going to break off. These bogies are actually on a bit of a hinge here which also moves, so it gives a little bit of suspension travel. The wheels are very loose as well, so you can move around quite a lot this wagon. And we have a coupling which is cantilevered, but not as much as the first wagon. The detail on the side of these bogies again isn't that great. There's not a lot on there, but we do have good spring and axle boxes moulded in, and the brakes are almost in line with the treads too. The rest of the underneath of this wagon is quite plain, and certainly by comparison to the brown one, but we do have the ribs and some pipework and brake gear moulded in here too. So overall, it's another interesting wagon with, I think, an acceptable level of decoration and detail. But let's put these both onto the scales and we'll see how much they weigh. So the brown van weighs 100 grams and the white one slightly lighter at 90 grams. So these two vintage Piko models made in East Germany, I think they're actually quite interesting. They're very unusual wagons from the Deutsche Reichsbahn and the CSD, and that's one thing I think is really appealing about old Piko stuff, is that they modelled the unusual, or certainly unusual here in the UK. I've never seen these types of wagons before, and I've seen a lot of wagons, so having these unusual prototypes is really quite appealing. For me, the brown one certainly stands out with the amount of detail on the side of the van, and I like the features on the top. There's no moulding marks or anything ugly on these, so it actually works pretty good, and it's just slightly let down by the painting on it, and I seem to have a bit of damage on it as well, which is a bit of a shame. The white one by comparison I think is not quite as good. The printing isn't quite as crisp, but the roof is masked off a lot better. But together they'll certainly add a lot of interest to your layout, and they're unusual in their prototypes, and they're not just the usual same old four-wheel vans that you see everywhere. The other appealing thing about this is that they go pretty cheap. Now the flanges are going to cause problems on more modern track, but you probably could swap out those wheels for more modern ones, and then they could probably run fine for many years to come. So if you're on a budget and you want to have some wagons, then I think these would be worth checking out. And also if you want something unusual, then these are definitely worth checking out as well. But what do you think about these two wagons? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts on these. And also if you have a favourite. For me, it's the brown van. So I'm going to put that on the turntable so you can see all the way around. And thanks for checking out these models with me, and I'll see you on the next one. Let's have some music.
So model trains, model worlds, choo choo, model trains, in tiny worlds, choo choo. So model trains, model worlds, choo choo, model trains, in tiny worlds, choo choo.